11 years, one show, and in the final 3 months, one band that created the most watched segment in the history of The Late Show's YouTube channel. Stephen Colbert walked onto his stage on the night of February 17, 2026, carrying something CBS had specifically told him not to carry: the truth about why the interview they pulled the previous day had been pulled, who made the call, why they made it, and, most precisely, most devastatingly, what that call had to do with a merger, a president, and a regulation that had been quietly rewritten in the months since a $16 million payment changed hands between a media conglomerate and the White House. CBS told him he could not say these things on broadcast. He said them on broadcast. And then something happened that no network lawyer, no FCC chairman, no Truth Social post at 7:43 in the morning could prevent. The audience in Studio 6A heard every word. The cameras recorded all of it. And the internet did what the internet does when it is shown something it was told it could not see. By 9:00 a.m. the following morning, the clip had cleared 4 million views. By noon, it had doubled. By the time Trump posted his response, longer than usual, the capital letters arriving in the second sentence, the number had become the story. Not just what Colbert said, the fact that it could not be stopped. But to understand what broke that night, we have to go back to the morning it was built. July 14, 2025. The Late Show taping. Colbert stands at his desk and says the words, "big, fat bribe," in reference to Paramount's $16 million settlement with the sitting president. He says it plainly, without performance, the way a man says a thing he has decided to say regardless of consequence. The audience laughs, the clip travels, and somewhere in the offices of CBS's parent company, in a meeting room, on a phone call, in the specific kind of conversation that does not generate a paper trail because the people in the room understand that it must not, a calculation begins. 3 days later, the cancellation is announced. CBS says it is financial, purely financial. The challenging backdrop of late-night television. Nothing to do with the content, nothing to do with the man. The statement is precise in the way that statements are precise when they have been reviewed by many lawyers and are designed to be true in the narrowest possible sense while carrying the maximum amount of misleading weight. Colbert returns the following Monday. The audience chants his name before he says a word. He looks out at them, not performing the pause, simply inside it, and then says the sentence that will be replayed for years. "They made one mistake. They left me alive." The crowd erupts, but it is what comes after the eruption that matters. The quiet that follows it. The quality of Colbert's face as the noise settles. The way he sits forward slightly in his chair and lets the room understand that what comes next is not comedy. 6 months pass. The show counts down. The merger review grinds forward through the machinery of federal approval processes. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr issues a public notice in January 2026, quietly reinterpreting the equal time rule to apply to late-night entertainment programming, a category that had been specifically exempted for decades. The notice does not have the force of law. It has the force of something more effective than law: suggestion from a regulator to an industry that needs that regulator's goodwill. February 15th. A 12-minute interview with James Tallarico, Texas State Representative, Democratic Senate candidate, rising star in a race the administration cannot afford to lose, is taped in Studio 6A. It is sharp. It is specific. It is, by every measure the show's producers apply to such things, exceptional television. February 16th. The CBS legal team calls the production floor. The interview cannot air. The reason given is the equal time rule. The instruction that follows, delivered, Colbert will later say, in no uncertain terms, is that he is also not permitted to discuss the decision on broadcast. He is given that instruction on a Sunday afternoon. By Sunday evening, he is at his kitchen table with a legal pad, tracing what he will later describe on air as the archaeology of this moment. Not just the decision to pull the interview, but everything beneath it, every layer that had to be excavated to understand what the surface concealed. The settlement, the merger, the FCC notice. The call, the timeline, which does not require interpretation because the dates are the interpretation. He does not sleep. Monday night. The taping begins. A senior CBS executive is in the building, not watching from the booth, but present, the way people are present when they are monitoring a situation they cannot fully control. A floor director who has worked the show for 6 years notices the executive near the stage-left corridor during the pre-show warm-up and makes a mental note, because executives do not usually appear in the corridor during warm-ups unless something has put them there. Colbert walks out. The audience, which was already loud, goes louder. He waits for them with the particular patience of a man who is not performing patience. Then the camera on him tightens, because the operator has learned in 11 years what Colbert's face looks like when what comes next requires a close frame. CBS banned me from airing the interview, he says, not as an opening, not as a monologue setup, as a fact delivered at the top of the broadcast, before a joke, before a music cue, before anything that could soften it or contextualize it, or give the audience a frame through which to receive it as entertainment rather than as what it is. They told me I could not show it. They told me I could not discuss it. And I want to be transparent with you about what that actually means. Not what the statement says, but what the call said. He picks up the legal pad. The pages are dense, handwriting layered over printed dates, lines drawn between entries, circles around specific numbers. The archaeology of a decision, excavated in a kitchen on a Sunday night by a man who knew he was going to say all of it on Monday, regardless of what happened afterward. He begins at July 14th, the bribe comment. Click. The date appears on the screen behind him, July 17th, the cancellation. Click. January 2026, the FCC notice. Click. February 15th, the Tellurico taping. Click. February 16th, the CBS call. Click. 5 dates, 5 items on a timeline. On the screen, they form a shape. Not a metaphor for a shape, an actual visual shape. A line of events that slopes in one direction from beginning to end. That is not a sequence of coincidences, Colbert says. That is the archaeology of a decision. Someone made a calculation. Someone decided that the cost of keeping this interview off the air was lower than the cost of airing it. I want you to see the math they used. The screen changes. A document, printed on Paramount Regulatory Affairs letterhead, dated October 2024, appears. It references discussions between the company's leadership and members of the incoming administration's transition team regarding content-related sensitivities in the context of the merger approval process. The document is real. The show's legal team verified it. The word sensitivities appears twice. The room processes this the way a room processes a document that has weight, not noise. Recognition, the slow compression of an audience understanding that the thing they suspected is the thing that happened. Then a door near the stage right curtain opens. She walks out slowly. A former Paramount senior communications officer, 14 years at the company, left 8 months ago. She attended the meetings where the merger's regulatory strategy was discussed. She signed an NDA that she has reviewed with her own attorney, who confirmed that what she is about to say does not constitute a breach of its terms, because the NDA covers proprietary business information, and what she is about to describe is not proprietary. It is a matter of public interest. The phrase that was used, she says, standing very still, her voice controlled in the manner of someone who has said this sentence many times in private in order to be able to say it once in public without breaking, was friction reduction. The guidance was that certain programming decisions, specific programming decisions related to specific content, could reduce friction in the regulatory relationship with the new administration. She pauses. Friction reduction. That was the term. I want it to be in the record, because when CBS says this decision is purely financial, I want there to be a room full of people who heard a different word used in a different room. The audience does not move. A second figure steps out. He is a former FCC policy analyst. He worked under 3 commissioners across 2 administrations. He does not come as an advocate. He comes, he says, as a person who spent 11 years helping the Commission apply its rules consistently, who watched the January 2026 Equal Time Reinterpretation Memo arrive without the standard notice and comment process that gives the public an opportunity to respond to proposed regulatory changes, and who concluded, in a written analysis he published under his own name, because he no longer works for the Commission and no longer needs its protection, that the memo was procedurally invalid and substantively unprecedented. The Equal Time rule, he says, was designed to prevent broadcasters from using their platforms to give one political candidate an advantage over another. It was never intended to give the executive branch a mechanism to pressure broadcasters about the content of entertainment programming. What the January memo does, by extending the rule to late-night talk shows, is precisely that. It gives any administration a legal-sounding instrument to threaten any network that allows its hosts to criticize the president. He looks at the camera directly. That's not regulation. That is archaeology running backwards. Someone burying something that should be exposed. Colbert holds the legal pad. They left me alive, he says, which means they left the stage, which means the cameras are still running, and every single thing I've shown you tonight, the dates, the documents, the meetings, the memo, is now on the record, in this building, on this channel, on every platform that picks it up. The archaeology is done. What was buried is now on the table. He closes the pad. He looks at the camera without blinking. Cancel culture has gone way too far. The audience breaks, clean and sudden and real. The laugh of a crowd that has been sitting inside something heavy for 40 minutes and has just been handed the precise, unexpected sentence that releases all of it. Then the laugh fades, and what replaces it is applause that doesn't peak and crash, but holds, sustained and deliberate, the kind that starts in the chest before the hands know what to do. One person rises from the center section, a woman, maybe 50, hands coming together slowly, then the row around her, then the section behind. The theater fills with the specific sound of people applauding, not because they have been cued, but because they have decided to, because the alternative is sitting still while something that needed to be said gets said and pretending that isn't extraordinary. The segment goes online before the episode ends, not the full broadcast. The 12-minute core, the legal pad, the 5 dates, the document, the 2 witnesses, the closing line, titled plainly, no hashtag, no optimized description, just the clip, uploaded, released. By midnight, it has 4 million views. By dawn, it has 8. The comment section, which the show's digital team stops monitoring around 2 a.m. because the volume exceeds their moderation capacity, fills with a single repeating pattern, people tagging other people, writing only, "Watch this." No framing, no argument. The clip as its own argument, forwarded from hand to hand, the way things are forwarded when they have said something that needed saying. At 3:14 a.m., a network's overnight news desk receives a communication, sent through an encrypted channel, no name attached, hospital letterhead from a private facility in Vienna, Austria. The letterhead matches public registration records. The document references a patient seen under a private alias. The dates of the examination correspond to a gap in Trump's official public schedule in March 2024, a 3-day period his office described as a private family weekend. The network's legal and medical teams spend the next 2 hours attempting to invalidate the document. They cannot find a forgery. A senior editor approves a single-paragraph report confirming the document's existence and the network's inability to disprove it. The segment airs at 5:30 a.m. Within 40 minutes, 4 other networks are covering the coverage, carefully and in precise legal language, but covering it. Trump posts at 6:52 a.m. The post is the longest of the series. It contains the word fake 7 times. It contains the phrase witch hunt twice. It contains a personal description of Colbert that runs to 3 sentences and manages, within those 3 sentences, to reference ratings, talent, and what the president describes as a pathetic and desperate attempt to stay relevant. Each sentence of the post is screenshotted and placed, by accounts across every platform, directly beside the specific segment it is responding to. The split screen assembles itself. On one side, a man with a legal pad, 5 dates, 2 witnesses, and a document on Paramount letterhead using the words friction reduction. On the other side, capital letters, multiplying exclamation marks, and an anger so visible it becomes its own evidence. CBS issues a statement. Colbert addresses it the following night. He holds the statement up. He reads 1 sentence of it aloud. He sets it down. He says, "That's the statement." He moves on. The show's final episode is still scheduled for May 21st. The merger review is still pending. The YouTube channel, outside the FCC's jurisdiction, outside Paramount's control, outside the reach of any equal time rule that has not yet been formally enacted, keeps uploading. The clip keeps traveling. The archaeology, as Colbert named it, is done. What's buried is on the table, and the table is visible from everywhere. The people who subscribe to this channel don't come for the drama. They come for the moments nobody else is willing to show. Join them, subscribe, turn on notifications. The next truth is already on the table.